Say hello to Phantom Defier Elena, or as you will see her shorthand, PDE. She's the newest Transcendence hero to come out in the last event we've just had, Chinese New Year, and she's been out for about a week now. So today I thought it would be appropriate for me to speak about her, where I think she can fit into your accounts, and how best you should use her if you do have the opportunity to do so. So here we go. Let's start off by doing what I like to do with heroes, which is start with their basic attack, actually. And you'll see that she changes her basic attack to dealing damage to one enemy and reducing their effect of being healed. Now, that's not very exciting. Honestly, it's an ability that's a bit like, okay, cool. You're going to reduce an opponent's healing effect. Doesn't really do much. It's a good amount of damage, though, like 2,000% of attack, actually, when you see it's upgraded. That's pretty nuts, so that's quite good. But generally, this is not going to be a fantastic basic attack, apart from the fact there is this extra sentence. Meanwhile, grants one layer of Mystic Veil to all allies with the least layers of Mystic Veil and restores their health. This is huge. Mystic Veil, if you don't know, is her ability to give you dodge. As you can see, it's a skill effect that grants the target Shadow Lurk, and with each layer that you have, it increases Shadow Lurk by 15%. And that percentage is decreased as you lose layers, and you lose layers when you dodge. So basically, you can have up to 3 layers, which takes you to a 45% dodge chance. If you do dodge, it becomes 30, and then if you dodge again, it becomes 15. So it works very similar to actually Mirror Image from Dungeons & Dragons. If you don't know what that is, it's pretty cool. If you're a D&D fan, hopefully you see the appeal of this. But basically, it just gives you an opportunity for your allies to dodge. Now, some people think this is absolutely busted, and in certain cases, yes, it can be. In other cases, it doesn't do anything. It really depends whether you dodge or not. But in game modes like Void Campaign, where you can try infinite times, eventually you will high roll, and this will work out quite nicely. So that's one positive about this. Mystic Veil is giving you dodge, which is an already well-known broken ability, super duper strong, so pretty cool that that's in. And the healing, not that bad. Her passive here, Black in White, pretty interesting. When an enemy releases an active skill, she'll reduce their speed. This is crippling in player versus player and also late game content like Void Campaign, because in player versus player, speed is very important. So reducing the opponent's speed for 2 rounds means next round they're going to be slower, which you can take advantage of in round 2, provided you're still alive. She'll also remove a control effect from one ally, and I can tell you, this is absolutely stupid. I hate this in PvP massively. I, for one, run an account focusing on Starwing Jara, a very crowd control focused hero, and I like to blow out the opposing team by controlling them. Well, this is a passive skill, so it doesn't matter if you're controlled or not, and it just basically triggers when anyone releases an active skill on the opposing team. So if I'm facing Elena's, it means that, oh, if I do what I want to do, which in most cases is active skills, I'm going to get punished. And by punished, I mean the control effects I'm doing are going to get removed. And the annoying thing about her Sublimation here is she can additionally remove even more control effects. That's not very nice. And then she'll also increase the control immunity of her allies. Now in PvP, that's not so impactful because a lot of people who are running crowd control heroes have a lot of control immunity offset. I'm looking at you, Starwing Jara. But typically, this will be quite good when it stacks up enough times, and honestly, getting clutch control immunity it can be very, very good. Again, I'm looking at her here in Void Campaign, like game modes like that. So yeah, there is a potential chance that she's going to be really good against people trying to control you. And it's no secret that in Void Campaign, the most annoying waves are waves with Holmes Young, who is notorious for turning you into a dove. So this is not only a way to break free, it's also a way to give you immunity to that ability. I will say this though, if she is doved, she doesn't have passives, so that is potentially a way to counter her as well. If Elena gets doved, you've lost. But of course, in Void Campaign, you can try many times and just look for a fight where you don't get doved, and you should be okay. Now, looking to the next one, this is Trickmaster. I would like to tell you how all this works, but I'm not going to because we need to look at her active skill to understand this, because this is a mess. So let me show you the active skill. She's going to deal 2,000% of attack damage to the 2 enemies with the highest attack, reduce their energy by 50, and then there's a 75% chance that she's going to inflict Fear Abyssal Gaze. So you can easily get that to 100% with some decent control precision, and with some added control immunity offset, you've got a pretty high chance that that Fear Abyssal Gaze is going to land. Also, it's specifically targeting the opponents with the highest attack. This is normally quite good, especially in PvP, because highest attack opponents are normally homeowners, shutting them down very, very good. Stealing their energy as well, a really nice way to lock them into Fear Abyssal Gaze. There is a little bit of counter synergy here, because of course if you're stealing energy, it's not going to trigger Black in White. But that's fine, it's a win-win. It's, oh, I stole your energy, that's good. Or, oh, I didn't steal your energy? Guess you're going to trigger Black and White. So she actually plays into herself. It's kind of like a win-win situation, as I said. Basically, she doesn't mind if people get active skills because she's got ways to get around them. But of course, stealing energy is busted. So of course, she's going to like doing that too. So that's pretty cool. Afterwards, she's also going to grant 3 layers of Mystic Veil, that ability to allow you to dodge, which is again annoying to backline allies. And as well, she's then going to heal them. which is pretty good. Also, there's different effects that will take place depending on the trick that she has. So remember that passive that reveals a trick? Well, this is where these tricks start to come into play. If she's got Deception, she's going to give 3 layers of Mystic Veil to the front lines, so that pretty much means she gives Mystic Veil to everybody. Fair enough. She's got Memento Mori, which means she's going to deal damage up to 50% of max HP to frontline enemies. That's pretty good. And increases all allies all damage reduction by 18%. That's fantastic. So looking at this, actually, Memento Mori is the least impactful of all of these because it's just a bit of damage. The other ones are offering you protection, which is more of what you want from a hero who is going, of course, to be a support hero and probably most definitely not a homeowner. So that's nice. And of course, guys, we can see what Shadow Lurk does. As I explained earlier, it gives you the ability to dodge. So already this is pretty good. And the fact that a lot of people have criticized us saying that these tricks are high rolly in the sense that you want the good ones, they're all kind of good. So where do they really come into effect? Well, tricks don't just do stuff with the active skill. They do stuff when they're revealed and also initiated. So initiation is more of a trigger effect, and revelation is what happens when she pulls them out of her bag of tricks. So at revelation, Deception is going to grant a shield equal to 1000% of attack to the ally with the lowest HP and herself. This is quite nice, similar to the way that you can see that with Asmodel and Vesa. A lot of these Transcendence heroes like to help out the lowest HP and themselves. This is pretty cool because giving protection to the lowest HP is a nice way to counter heroes who target the lowest HP because it gives them a lot more protection. As well, it helps that lowest HP hero survive, which is of course good because they are the hero with the lowest HP. So that's quite nice. And also the initiation of Deception will happen after she takes damage from 2 active skills and before the next time she acts. So basically, if she hasn't acted, she takes active skill damage 2 or above times, she will restore all allies' HP equal to 35% of max HP, and then gives them Mystic Veil. This means you might actually want to run Phantom Defier slower, so that she can get hit by these active skills, trigger this, give Mystic Veil, offering you dodge. It's really nice that she's got these mid-round abilities. It means she's always doing something. She doesn't actually have to act, and the fact that she's always popping out these little support effects is very, very strong. Memento Mori, when that's revealed, is going to increase the crit damage of herself and one ally with the highest crit. Her buffing herself, not that good, but the ally with the highest crit, if you can make sure that that's going to be your homeowner hero, boom, you've just buffed up their crit damage. Fantastic. 45% is big as well. That's a massive amount of crit damage. So if you make sure your heroes like Asmodel or Swordflash or Vulcan or Markman, whoever is your homeowner, doesn't have maxed out crit damage, which is typically in PvP because you can't really run a speed crit damage stone. That just doesn't exist. So you'll go speed attack, not max out your crit damage, then she'll top it up. Really strong synergy there. And then when it's initiated, which is when an ally or enemy dies, she will deal damage equal to 90% of current HP to an opponent with the highest HP. So this is like Sherlock's health swap. She just goes, nope, all your health's just gone. And again, the enemy with the highest HP is typically a homeowner, but this does cap with Elena's attack, so she deals enough attack to take away a lot of their health, but this is mainly to stop bosses. That said, though, homeowners do have an abundantly high HP stat, so it's likely she can't take too much away, but it's still added damage that's going to put those heroes under pressure. And then finally, we have Uprising, which increases the attack of herself and one ally with the highest attack by 20% for 3 rounds. So this is going to focus, again, your main homeowner. That should be the hero with the highest attack. And then when she takes crit damage 2 or above times before she acts, she increases all allies' attack by 20% for 3 rounds. So it's a nice little attack buff. All of these are good, right? If you focus the crit into a good hero, great, more damage. If you get their more attack up, fantastic. And then if she gets this added healing effect and grants shields, that's going to really help too. So a lot of these abilities are all really, really good. And as I've said, if you need like a specific one for a Void campaign wave, you just keep trying that until she gets it. So she's a really fun hero. A lot of people have worried that these tricks are high rolly, but again, with a lot of these strategies, you can see here, it really doesn't matter what you pull. What do you want? Crit damage, bit of attack, healing for everybody. I'm happy with all of that. So it's kind of cool that despite being a hero who's a little bit tricksy, if you pardon the pun, in what she does, you know, she's inconsistent, it's kind of good that they're all fine, right? They're all good abilities, so you don't mind which one happens. Going on here as well, when you sublime this, at the end of each round, she'll remove a random damage over time from herself. That's nice. That improves her survival. Great against people like Valkyrie, so you don't need to give her damage over time protection, so that's good. And adds extra revelation to tricks, which is pretty cool. So when they're revealed, if it's Deception, she increases the number of allies with the lowest HP to 2. So rather than giving one person a shield on herself, she gives 2 people a shield on herself. So she's just shielding half the team. Very nice. Increases the holy damage by 20%. That's really good. So that's that one that buffs crit damage. So crit damage and holy damage, that's massive, especially for heroes who are your main homeowner. Of course, crit damage and holy damage are the 2 best damage stats outside of crazy stuff like Defier and Giant Killer. And Uprising, rather than just buffing your attack, also gives you all damage reduction to the ally with the highest attack. So that's nice. It makes your homeowner more tanky if they weren't already, so that's pretty exciting. And on top of all of that, she's got a really interesting core of Origin, which at the beginning of each battle reduces the duration of control effects to herself and 2 random allies. And of course, if you take that higher by having multiple noble cores, it can be more random allies. So you can pretty much eventually, if you've got enough noble cores, if you're a crazy, crazy whale, have enough of these floating around that almost the whole team is getting those control effects reduced by 1. And what happens with control effects is they're typically 2 rounds long, so if you reduce their duration to 1 round, it means when the round you're currently in ends, they'll get removed. Because round timers tick based on the end of a round. So you could literally CC someone after they've already acted, and at the end of that round it gets removed. So it's like having Control Purify. Very, very strong ability that's pretty much, I would say, game-changing in some sense, because it means that you can run different purifiers on heroes, which can be really, really strong in player versus player content, because if you're focusing on Control Purify, you don't have things like Attribute Reduction Purify or Damage Over Time Purify, and a lot of people running Transcendence Heroes are doing a lot of damage over time. So in PvP, you might see people using Damage Over Time Purify to counter these things. Could even be true for Void Campaign. You could have a wave with a lot of crowd control and damage over time. So by being able to remove the control effects with this core, you can then focus on the damage over time removal. So that's something to consider if you wanted to use her. Of course, getting yourself a noble core or even multiple noble cores is not an easy feat. Also, as well, the core, just because, is going to add more things to the tricks, which is pretty cool, so that's when they're revealed. So Deception has a 50% chance to inflict Healing Curse, one of the most busted abilities in the game that basically punishes you for being healed. Instead of healing you, it hurts you. And if you haven't seen, that's like a one-trick way to kill a Swordflash, because she heals herself massively. Or if anyone's next to an Ignis, Ignis will give you full health of healing. If they're Healing Cursed, that's going to be full health of dying, so pretty cool ability. When Memento Mori comes out, she reduces all enemies' crit by 10% and their precision by 25%, so that's a nice little damage debuff, potentially. And an Uprising reduces all enemies' control immunity by 10%, so that's pretty good. It makes your control effects more consistent. And then, as well, when she reveals or initiates any trick, she's going to give herself a layer of Scheme. And when she has 10 layers of Scheme, she'll grant Absolute Power, which takes effect instantly the next time she acts. And Absolute Power is just going to restore everyone's health and give them more attack, more speed, and more all damage reduction. So she's kind of doing a lot of different things here. Very nice that this core exists. Whether it's the core to go for depends on your strategy. Some people will still stick to Star Alchemist Holmes Young, some people will still prefer Starwing Jara, but it's definitely up there with some of the most powerful cores in the game, which is very, very cool. Which leads me on to the question, is this a hero you want to use? It's a hard question to answer, really, because if you look at all these abilities, you know, even here, if you look at the Sublimation version of her active skill, she's giving you healing, which is really nice. It's a nice way to tell, actually, if you have an opponent with an Elena, if they do have this Noble Sublimation, if their heroes are randomly healing and taking no damage when you attack them, that's because you just triggered the Shadow Healing and Mystic Veil. Well done. It's a good way to tell that they dodged. It also means you're probably going to lose, because they dodged you and then healed some, so that's a bit annoying, especially if it's your main homeowner that doesn't attack, but you know what? These are things we've got to deal with now in PvP. And yeah, a lot of people are asking, how would you use Elena? Well, I suppose she's absolutely nuts in player versus player. Very, very strong. Because she's giving you dodge, a really strong ability. She's going to remove control effects. Very nice. But I know the majority of you don't care about player versus player content. So you'll be asking, well, where does she fit in on my team? Generally, she's not that necessary. For all that she does so many cool things, that's it. They're just cool. Speed debuffing doesn't really affect most mid-game players. You don't need this till late game. Control immunity, not that important really, because if you can outspeed opponents, you're actually just better off CCing them. So you're better off running someone like Starwing Jara just to crowd control your opponents, and then they're not really a problem. Also, Starwing Jara crowd controlling opponents means they're not going to do anything, which means you won't get any value from black and white. So there is counter synergy there. If you're running a team very much focused on crowd control, which is pretty much the meta in things like Realmsgate, you just will find that Phantom Defier Elena isn't doing all that much, which is a little bit of a shame. That said, though, even though black and white isn't going to benefit Jara once she's crowd controlled the whole opposing team, it is going to be clutch in round 1 if your opponents are faster than you and there's nothing you can do about it. Now, some of you might assume I'm saying this because of the speed. Well, no, actually. The speed is negligible, because the problem is when an opponent releases an active skill, that's when they do the annoying control effects. So by that point, you've already lost. So who cares if they're reduced by 12 now? What's crucial is the fact that when the rest of the opposing team do their active skills in round 2, you can then go ahead and remove the control effects from your team, giving Jara the window of opportunity in round 2 to CC them. Not to mention the fact that she does have abilities that randomly trigger passive heals. If you look, this ability on the Deception, when she's hit by 2 active skills, which is very probable if she pulls this out of the bag early, she's then going to heal the whole team and give you Mystic Veil. This means if you are slower than the opponents and you would traditionally just die to getting hit by all those opponents, Phantom Defier Elena gives you the chance to heal up, buy your time to do your actives, and then lock them down with Jara. So even though you can look at this and say, actually, there isn't synergy here with Jara once she's got rolling, she increases the chance that your Jara will get rolling, and that is really, really important. This means that when you reach a point in Void Campaign or any endgame content where the opponent is just too fast and there's nothing you can do about it, most people will say, oh, just get some Snow Hearts, or just get a Phantom Defier Elena, and you potentially just solved all your problems. So I like this a lot, and people have asked, where would and when would I build a Phantom Defier Elena on a team? When you get to 6 Transcendence Heroes. Now, why specifically 6? Well, the perfect 5 Transcendence Hero team starts, of course, with a starring Jara. She's cheap and easy to run. You don't need to make her Tree of Origin 5, although it's good that you do because it makes her as fast as possible. But let's just say you make a Tree of Origin 4 just so that you can go ahead and get the upgrades to Void Infusion and her active skill. Then after that, you want to run support heroes to help you out. Now, you might say, hey, but MK, Elena is a support hero. She's offering all these cool things. Well, yes, of course she is, but let's look at the other support heroes in the game for a moment. We've got Fairy Queen Vesa, who offers shields and healing far more consistently than Elena, so to keep you alive, I would lean towards Fairy Queen Vesa. Not to mention, when Star Expedition comes along, it's nice to have her around to pivot your account towards, and offers you some heterogeneity that you can actually have something different to do that isn't just Jara. And then, of course, we're going to need other heroes to support. Well, Halora is a tenant, and Halora offers a load of survivability, is going to help you in fights where crowd control doesn't even matter. She's got quite a good core as well, if that was something you wanted. And let's be honest, increasing your all damage dealt by an astronomical amount, all the way up to 24%, is just good, and that's guaranteed. Not to mention her pings are very strong, her active skill is going to deal Abyssal Corruption, which improves your crit damage, and you'll slowly realize, actually, no, you know what, Halora, including all the healing you could eventually get from her, is just good and probably better than Elena in most circumstances. And then you've got Mystic Fairy Freya, the one hero that everybody keeps talking about as being the hero that's not quite as good as Elena. And the reason people are saying this is, first of all, both offer dodge to your team, which is true. Mirage Pollen allows you to dodge, but the things about Mystic Fairy Freya that a lot of people forget is that Mystic Fairy Freya, whenever an ally releases a basic attack or active skill, is going to give you all damage reduction and attack. So you don't rely on any tricks for that to get triggered. You don't need your opponent to do anything. It's just when you do stuff that you want. And when you have the speed advantage and your heroes are going first, this is way better than anything Elena is going to go ahead and do. Not to mention the fact that when you upgrade this, if you're lucky enough, evolutionary factor to your allies is massive. That's really strong. Also, when it just gets triggered straight off when she does her first active skill, all allies are gaining 40% damage reduction, which just makes Elena's damage reduction look pathetic, and she's giving you a 35% control immunity straight off the bat, which, of course, if Freya is faster than the opponents, is just going to help you against those control effects we were talking about you wanting to avoid anyway. So in the game, when you're at a point where your Jara is faster than opponents, Mystic Fairy Freya is 100% going to be better than Elena. So at that point, you can already start to see a team here. You go Jara, Fairy Queen Vesa, Halora, then you go ahead and you choose Mystic Fairy Freya, and the next hero, of course, is going to be Lord of Fear Aspen, because he's going to help you with your control effects, because his synergy from his basic attack removes the control immunity from opponents. So again, if you can make him really fast, that's absolutely fantastic. And of course, he's just a really solid hero to have. And it's at this point, that's when I would say, now consider Elena, because you will get to a point where that 5 Transcendence hero team and then a little 10-star puppet gets you so far in Void Campaign that then by adding Elena, that's when you go ahead and break the seal on those things you couldn't do. Not to mention, Elena is going to be a tenant for your Starwing Jara, and that's one really powerful thing about Elena that we haven't even mentioned yet. She finally plugs the hole on Starwing Jara's things. This is really, really, really good, because finally we don't have to run a freaking Sword Flash. The amount of people that would build Sword Flash, just a terrible decision because it doesn't synergize with the team at all, because as a homeowner, Sword Flash is great, but as a tenant, I know she has a decent attack stat, but let's be honest, what the heck is a tenant Sword Flash doing for you apart from just being a damage dealer that's not doing any damage? Terrible hero. But Elena, if you go ahead and run her as a tenant, she can still support you really, really nicely. And I think she's the crucial 6th Transcendence hero we've always needed. In PvP, she takes the chalk because she's absolutely fantastic. She's going to synergize with defensive heroes like Mystic Fairy Freya, whilst also shutting down oppressive Jaras with that control removal. Really strong. And another thing people have asked is, well, is there an opportunity to build her sooner than that? Well, I suppose if you wanted to, you can see she's tenant spot 4 for Lord of Fear Aspen. So if you wanted to be a bit weird and go with Lord of Fear Aspen as a first Transcendence hero, it's by no means a terrible strategy. Using him as a main hero can work. I personally prefer Sword Flash Lord of Fear Aspen with Sword Flash as a homeowner, but if you want it to be a bit different, Lord of Fear Aspen with an Elena could work. Elena offers Fear Abyssal Gaze, which is a synergizing ability with Lord of Fear Aspen that's going to help him out. The two of them will, of course, energy steal and fear opponents. It just works out really nice. Not to mention she's going to give you dodge, which improves the survivability of the Aspen and is going to help your team all round. And when you only have like 2 Transcendence heroes, you still want to absolutely focus your strategy into one of them. So, of course, Lord of Fear Aspen with her as a tenant, and not to mention tenant spot 1, 2, and 3 were already good for Aspen. We've got Drake, we've got Carrie, we've got Onkiramaru. None of those are Transcendent, but they're all good. Onkiramaru, of course, one of the most versatile tenants in the game, so having him on your account is fine. Carrie's bonkers. Drake's really useful in broken spaces. It's always been tenant spot 4 that was an issue, because who the heck is building an Asmodel the Dauntless early? No, you build him when you've got like 6 or 7 Transcendence heroes. No need. Mockman, dreadful hero actually, despite him being a tenant for tons. He's just not very good unless you transcend him, but if you're using Lord of Fear Aspen as a homeowner, you're never going to transcend this Mockman because Lord of Fear Aspen's your homeowner. So why would you do that? If Mockman is not a homeowner, then there's no point building him. So burber, unless of course you're using him as a tenant for someone, which you really shouldn't do early on in the game. So it's the same problem as Asmodel the Dauntless, which just leaves Elena coming into tenant spot 4 as such a perfect addition. Now, would I recommend this? Yes, if you want to have fun, but I think the most optimal point to build an Elena is as a 6th Transcendence hero to perfect a Starwing Jara account, because even though her black and white ability is not synergistic with Jara once she's done what she needs to do, if you think about it as a way of improving the opportunity for it to trigger, right, to lock down those opponents, to give you the chance to do what Jara needs to do, that's where Phantom Defier Elena comes into play. She's not a hero that's there to synergize with Jara. She's a hero who's here to just increase the chance that Jara does what she wants to do. And by that point, Elena backs off and says, look, I'm just going to heal you and give you a few buffs, but really, Fairy Queen Vesa, Mystic Fairy Freya, and Halora are offering the true support here, and Jara, you just keep locking them down. I've done what I needed to do, and that is fantastic. Not to mention, if a few enemies do slip the net, maybe she's Abyssal Feared them, or maybe she's even stolen their energy. So actually, Elena is just this really nice, I guess, sandbag hero, really, that just makes Jara's team a little bit better, whilst also completely countering Jara in PvP. So I see her as a fantastic addition to the game, but of course there will be heroes I want to prioritize first. Mystic Fairy Freya is just a superior support hero, offering far more consistent ways of giving you protection and damage, and not to mention that Mystic Fairy Freya, once you sublime her, is giving way more consistent shields, like every time a basic or active skill is triggered. So yeah, I'm always going to lean towards Freya first, but once you've got to a point where you're like, well, I've got Freya, I've got Halora, your boy needs more support, I mean, dude, Phantom Defier Elena just comes in and just gives it to you exactly how you want it. And you have to say, straight up, great hero for that reason. Really nice design. Plugged a gap that we had in Transcendence Heroes and needed without being oppressively broken. Right? You could build her early, it's not necessary. You can build her late, it's only going to help existing strategies. But actually, you could go with other strategies too. You might want Asmodel the Dauntless. Maybe that's going to be fun. You might want to go with an Eos, right? People have always been a little bit flip-floppy with who their 6th Transcendence hero is when going with the Jara strategy. Personally, I would choose Asmodel the Dauntless, actually, because he's able to debuff the speed of opponents with his active skill. So this can actually be really, really clutch. In fact, if you improve him, you'll see that it's going to be a debuff of 80 speed. So that's really good for helping Jara get that extra edge on speed, but there will eventually come a point where Asphodel's speed debuff still is not enough, and you either then have to start running Snow Hearts, but then you could also argue for Elena. So it's not that Elena is absolutely the best pick for number 6, it's that she offers a different choice, whilst also filling in a tenants gap for Jara. Do I think Phantom Defier Elena is a great hero? Of course, she's a brilliant addition to the game. In fact, a necessary addition, offering so much interesting stuff. Is her core compulsory? Well, you could argue on one hand reducing control effects by a round is nice, but also she reduces control effects and removes them entirely with her passive. So you could argue, yeah, it's good, but it's not necessary, which means we can still stick with starring Jara's core for those of you who are budget and looking for the most effective way to deal with game modes. And of course, as we lean forwards and your accounts grow into being a Vulcan-focused account or a Mockman-focused account, you can then squeeze in Elena to obviously give you that better consistency, but make sure you don't make the mistake of ignoring heroes like Mystic Fairy Freya or Halora just because you have Phantom Defier Elena. There are lots of really good support heroes in this game that outclass Elena when it comes to their consistency and their damage reduction and their attack. Yes, Elena is giving you dodge, that's nice. Yes, she's removing control effects, which can be clutch, but all of that is naught if you're still not running those other good support heroes like Mystic Fairy Freya. So I really encourage you guys to really think about your team composition. That's something I've had to do, and I've realized that actually Elena doesn't fit into my account because I've already got strategies that I need to focus on. But for some of you, your accounts may have room for Elena, just like the Jara example I gave. So hopefully you folks can find room for Elena. Maybe you won't. Let me know in the comments section if you plan on building her. Let me know if you want to build her early, or let me know if you're going to take my advice and build her late as your 6th. Maybe you've even got 5 Transcendence Heroes, you're running that Jara team, and this video has helped you come to the conclusion of who your 6th Transcendence Hero should be. Either way, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully you found today's video useful and insightful, and if you have any more questions or thoughts about Elena, drop them in the comments section below, and hopefully myself or a member of the community will get back to you. Until next time, folks, don't forget to subscribe, and of course, happy idling.